like a bathing zone. But nowadays it's so.
Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. Yes, the TTPS is joining us this morning yet again because it is indeed Monday. This morning, Inspector Michelle Lewis joins us to discuss the impact of gang violence on communities. Good morning to you, Inspector.
Good morning, Rockers.
Good morning.
And good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
How are you this morning, Inspector?
I am physically well, but not emotionally well because of gang violence and how it is negatively impacting our community, our national community.
Tell us what in particular triggered this feeling of not being well about it, because it's been going on for some time.
It has been going on, and the stark reality about it is that most of the gang members are young persons under the age of 18. Even though you may see now persons over the age of 18 dying as a result of gang violence, they would have been in it prior. And so they're in gang violence for a while. But we have seen and noted that a lot of members, over 80% of the members that are involved in gangs, are young people. And so they are an easy target for persons who are more knowledgeable than they are, who could manipulate them mentally and to coerce them into activities because of the fact that children are, of course, minors, mentally not as developed as they ought to be and that kind of thing, right?
Impressionable.
Correct. So we see persons taking advantage of them because they know that children are protected by the law somewhat. And so they are easier to utilize in the commission or in aiding and abetting criminal activities.
Okay. Now, as Rocker said, impressionable, young, we know that this is when their minds can be molded, of course. But aside from that, there must be some other causative factors that lean towards this becoming something of being predominance in society. What are some of the factors that you've seen so far?
So young people, minors, children, as sometimes adults do as well, look for security, look for feeling of belonging, that if they're not getting it in the primary places as their home with their families, they look for it elsewhere. And these are some of the things that we see being the reasons why young people gravitate and associate with gang activities and groups. It may not necessarily be that the gang has a name, but they affiliate with the type of behavior and conduct that we know as gang activities.
Inspector, I have to ask, and I am sure people at home are asking as well, this information that you're sharing with us, where is this data coming from?
So we have the Special Interaction Unit under the Criminal Division, ACP, Vina Butler. And so within the organization, throughout the divisions, we have intelligence unit and anti-gang units that work to gather intel that assists the police.
And after the intel is gathered, do we have an action team that goes out and says, all right, we have this information on this gang, that gang, the other gang, and the members, like you would have mentioned, who may be overage, underage, as the case may be. What has been done or what can be further done to be able to quell this challenge that we have?
So the TTPS, we operate with the whatever legislations that we have.
Right.
We have the AntiGang Act, which is number 4 of 2021, and other supporting legislations, right? So, for example, coming out of the incident that occurred on the weekend in Powder Magazine, and based on intel that the officers were already working on, the police we have made some inroads with that already.
Inroads or arrests?
Inroads is the word I would use at this point in relation to that.
Okay.
And that came from good intel. Yes. And so it is not that the intelligence, because people are sometimes of the opinion that because they don't see an immediate arrest for everything that is taking place that the police isn't working. But we also have the threshold in relation to the evidence and ensuring that when you put somebody before the court, that the evidence can stand. And so sometimes what you see as a layman and what the court requires and demand for us to do, we must prove the case before the court. There are some that are strict liability in relation to firearms and stuff like that. But that isn't always that we get the person with the possession of the firearm on them. If that is the case, then so be it. But then there are other activities that take place.
But the same intel you were just discussing, does that not help the situation? If we have intel, the police has intel, then they can make those arrests and the intel would stand up against in the court, not so?
Yes, so we utilize the intel and we have charged person under the Anti-Gang Act and under the Firearms and other acts, but we also see that in some cases, persons are before the court and they would come back out again, and because it's a bailable offense.
Right.
And so sometimes persons have 3 and 4 matters before the court, charged for similar matters, and they're out again. So it is not that the police isn't doing, and sometimes these are the same persons that come back out and do the same type of crimes, and the police are still working with them. And when we say with them, in terms of the gang activities that they involve in and getting the intel in relation to further arrest. So it is a very complicated situation, really, when we work with what we have to work with. But it is not that the TTPS is not treating with and dealing with in relation to gang activities and young people. It's important that parents play their role in the development of their children's lives. That is crucial, because once a child does not feel a sense of belonging and protection from the main primary source of care, which is their household and their family, then we end up in problems. Unfortunately, we have where some of the very family members are also involved in gang activities, so that the environment in itself for a child is not even a safe one. So we have children who are already exposed to what if, I would use the word heavy arm, right, as a police, but you're really talking about an automatic firearm, a rifle. You have children who have already seen and been exposed to those things, and it's like, you know, a normal thing for them to see. And that is because some members of their household or relatives have exposed them to it. So in cases where you have parents and adults who are engaged and involved in criminal activity, and children are growing up in that environment, we can only visualize the outcome of that child based on their situation that they have absolutely no control over. And you know, for example, I may have a child, right? Let's say I'm a doctor or a nurse. So my child admires me, so this child, I am a nurse, so the child wants to be now a doctor. Because the child, or you know, the next generation tend to do better. It goes both ways, unfortunately, that the next generation becomes worse in the criminal activities.
Yeah, something that you just mentioned, just going back to before you mentioned family particularly, very much like a chicken and an egg thing, because one of the things that you mentioned, of course, is some of these things are bailable offenses. And in a case like that, with the fact that we see some things being repeated or repeated offenders, for example, is it that we need to go back and look at the anti-gang legislation? And as of right now, you're really making the best of a situation. What can be done in a case like this?
So the environment, the global environment, continues to change. There continuously is different things that add to it that causes at some point in time for revision, review of the Act, for amendments of the Act. We have a situation where we have a lot of deportees who also add to gang violence in Trinidad and Tobago when they are deported from the United States or other countries because of some felony that they have committed across there, and now they return here. And of course, with probably no family here and with the mind that they have from there, it is inculcated now in Trinidad and the influence on the community in Trinidad and Tobago.
I'm happy you brought that up, Inspector, because I've always wondered, you know, in a case where somebody gets deported for criminal activity, when they land in Piaco, is that not something that is checked and then we follow up with the TTPS?
Yeah, so we will know that the person is in the country.
Right.
But the person has now come into the country. They would have either served their time in the States and have now returned to their native land as a national of Trinidad and Tobago,
Right.
which they must do, right? And so they are back into the society. In some cases, they have no family here. In some cases, they do, and they would reside according as they settle because they know their eyes will be on them at a particular point. But as they settle, they, get into a lot of them into activities that are violent and contrary to the law.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they want to earn an income of some sort, right? And unfortunately, if it is that what they know is that's what they will continue to do. So I guess my concern is, do we even, from that perspective, we're not even talking about the rest of the gang stuff, right? Like, in that perspective, is there a system in place that we can say, if you get deported, here, there's help for you if you have no family, if you have no whatever, there's help for you to get started so that you don't end up going wrong? Because I feel like we keep looking at cures rather than prevention.
So there's the rehabilitation, there's a center up in Waterfield, I just can't remember it now, that Chance wife.
Yeah.
That institution works well with persons like that.
Vision on a Mission?
Vision on a Mission.
Right, so they have a couple places across.
Yes, so there are some places, not enough, but there are places. And then, of course, sometimes what is available, and so what you want and what is available may not meet at the same point, because persons have high demands and needs and wants that sometimes the facilities do not provide them with. And so they step out after a while, and look to see where they can get their gains. That's the fact of the matter. So with the amount of young people who are engaged in criminal activities, for example, last night we had a homicide in Maraval, and someone injured. Again, gang-related activity. So when you have so much percentage of members of gang, whether known or unknown, whether 6, 7, Muslim, Rasta, a no-name gang, or whatever the case may be, maybe it is just singing a song and you're associated. So you're seeing that the police is utilizing the law as much as we can in relation to it. But when you're seeing so many young persons who can be influenced by song, who can be influenced by money, by power in relation to a firearm, because persons have the opinion that if I have this piece of metal in my hand, I can do anything. I can walk up to somebody and rob them and get what they have. That's what goes through the mind of a young person, not understanding that it's a lethal piece of weapon, very dangerous, deadly, and someone's life is taken, and now you have
no
the
reset button.
None.
You have no reset button, but you also live with the haunt of it, and that is something that gang leaders don't tell you, right? Because it has happened. And if you talk to persons who are involved in it and were involved, they'll say the first murder is the one that sticks in their head. So the child who sees this thing as preachy and wants to get inducted into a gang and commits this offense, after you have done that, you realize that your life now is going a particular path that you didn't really cater for.
Right.
But nobody told you about. So
Sometimes
the gang,
people just tell you and it doesn't listen.
And they don't listen, yeah.
Correct,
So that's
because
a whole other
you
thing.
have it, in your head that, So it is really a serious issue that is plaguing the communities of Trinidad throughout the nation. And so we really want to encourage persons, NGOs, parents, teachers, everyone to do your part. And of course, if you see something, say something and continue to partner with the TTPS.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Inspector Michelle Lewis, for being here this morning. Looking forward to having you back next week, Monday. TTPS on now every single Monday and every single day. We have your birthdays. Stay tuned. They're happening right after this break.
Recognize them because of his favorite Snoop Doggy t-shirt. Your little brother didn't just dead, the little brother dead.